Hello, welcome everybody. This is Larry Driscoll, and Carter Klippel is working with the videotape machine, and we're here to explore the information presented in the Billy Meier Pleiadian extraterrestrial case occurring in Switzerland from 1975 to the present, ongoing at the present. And we're going to explore various subject matters that are important to our world that Billy has been announcing us to take responsibility for actions as we move in our evolution into the future. Well, why wouldn't we start out with the first and most important problem facing our planet, the Earth, right now, is Earth overpopulation. Many times you don't hear about it, but it's a real thing. There's 3.3 humans per second coming onto our planet, and added population per year. That's 108 million people per year, over 1 billion per decade. So we better take account of that, and here is a process that Billy has suggested over time, since his early age when he announced overpopulation as a problem to the UN in 1951 as a 14-year-old boy. So his solution is basically a 7-year birth stop or something equivalent to stopping the heavy flow of biomass or human bodies onto our planet. And what we have here in this center poster is the entire world in, so to speak, typographical or literary form with all the nations of the world. There's approximately 200 expressed so that we all are in this together. This is our problem. This is how we're going to solve it, or one of the ways that we can solve it. Basically, you talk out with the name of each country, its square footage in kilometers of land area. It's got a certain amount of cropland capability and pasture land. That adds to what we call the cultivatable percentage. That's the part that can feed indirectly or directly your populace. With a density of 12 people, this is sort of a creation, which you will learn about that term a little bit more in the future. That gives you the proper population for that particular nation. And when you divide it into the total cultivatable land of the entire Earth, that percentage dictates how many people you should have in your nation. Now, it's really, when you think about it, let's face it, it's the nation, this is your location, it's its ability to life support through food, the occupants of the nation. And everybody shares in that throughout the nation, throughout the world, I should say. There's ways of looking at what the existing population is and then dividing it with the proper population, and that tells you how many times overpopulated our Earth is, or that nation is. Some nations are overpopulated greatly, some aren't. But there are more that are overpopulated. And so what you do, in order, it's a big challenge to reduce population. So what you want to do is, as you're growing up, can you focus on this one, Carter, down here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got it.
All right, folks, with anything, it's hard to get going from going in the wrong way to going in the right way. So we call what we have is a transition period. This is where on the left you see our population in birth, death, and population gain. We want to slowly have fewer and fewer births. Now, I've kind of rounded off the average deaths occurring on the Earth at this time. It's very close. So just to make the transition idea stand out clearly as concept. So you can see as slowly you drop the births a little bit each year. You're going on a diet. Let's call it a population diet from the plant. You reach this point where you're very close. Now you have more births, more death, and you start losing. So you get to this point. Now in this particular instance, I've allowed for 13 million births and 32 million deaths, whereas over a period of 8 years. But you can do it, as Billy suggests, no births, and then have a lot of births in the 8th year. It's just that sometimes when you do something in a step-by-step form, like I've told Carter a little bit here, that maybe a kindergarten teacher would like to have somebody to teach rather than once every 8 years. So there's always looking at the way you can reduce. Here's a quick, over here maybe, if you can get on that one, Carter. This is another sketch. You've heard about what they're doing in China, one child per marriage. If you could envision a population of a nation in sort of thirds, the average age of a human being is about 75, let's take it. You know, as you move from this way, this group of people, eventually the older population dies, this moves forward, this one moves forward and produces half. This is the level to say the 0 to 25-year-olds that would have the children, have half. And you can see how as you move forward, less and less people exist because you're having the one child per family. Now, one of the bad things that they do in China is everybody celebrates the male over the female, which is just terrible. We like everybody. Everybody's equal. Just think how bad that is, and they're experiencing that right now in China because now 20-year-olds, men, are fighting for the affections of a girl. That's not good to have 20 guys wanting the affections of a woman. That's why sex dolls are becoming popular, but we don't want to get into that. And now, so when you have, these are some of the details further details about the overpopulation system. So when you have it for the entire world, each nation, if we can go to the, over to there, each nation, now basically these two posters, this whole portion is just very similar. It looks complicated, but over here you go, and we've selected, since we are Americans, we've selected the United States, and here's the 50 states. So you do the same thing with the area, the pasture land, the crop land equals cultivatable land times the density allowed, and you do the same process, and that dictates the terms, and then you would go into something similar with a transition period. I think I have one right here for just the state. It's just smaller numbers, and it's very similar. Each nation could couple into that, and so it's a challenge. One thing that Billy has helped a little bit with in one of his open letters to the world, he's saying that while he has a recommended population of approximately 529 million for the Earth, he says basically if you can get between 529 and 1.6 billion, you've really improved your planet. You're getting close. So, but it's going to take a while to get there, and we're at about 8.6 billion, which, by the way, is more. There are more people on our planet than our authorities, our Earth authorities, recognize. And thanks to the Pleiaren, they give Billy the exact population on the Earth planet on December 31st of every year. Pita has been doing that. Now over here, I'll move to this one. And these posters were sent out to various Earth authorities. And what I wanted to do, rather than be so stark with numbers and data, I wanted to produce something that was more of a visual item of proof in a sense. You can see the pictures of the UFOs. These have all been taken by Billy over Switzerland through, basically the major photos were taken from, say, 1975 to 81. And when you had time to study these, they were very unique situations. Not many photographs that people see have multiple craft in them. There's many kinds of craft. As you can see, there's 2 craft in one picture. There's even one in here, it's hard to see, but there's a known craft, a Swiss Mirage fighter in the background, and a UFO. Rarely do you ever see an IFO, identified flying object, and a UFO, unidentified flying object, in the same photograph. So, and then I wanted to also put on this, there's a document given to Billy, what the Pleiaren wish for the human beings on Earth. And this is just a very highly advanced extraterrestrial race offering the things that we need to consider for a healthy living on and a healthy planet. And of course they address the population issue, and they address the need to learn a little about the total wonderful experience of evolution of each human being, which, while we're talking now about that, we might, if we can pan over to towards the Talmud over there, Carter, when you can get there. We'll just touch that because that's such an important item. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is that this is the book. It's called the Talmud Emmanuel, the 5th edition. There have been easily 4 editions that came forward. Each are very good, but Billy this time has introduced the modern knowledge about items in this book that were introduced in and around 26 to 32 CE, current era, that by the wonderful prophet Emmanuel, who is falsely referred to as Jesus Christ. So we found statements in here, and one of the wonderful things that new people coming, especially the millennials, are becoming sensitive to looking for this kind of information. But it's really here for everyone, and everyone will love the description of this wonderful term, creation, that has been lost to humans' awareness since the time of Emmanuel in 26 to 32, when the 32 CE was the crucifixion. So creation, that term, is mentioned and described 217 times in this book with multiple descriptions. And then Billy brings in more and more information about creation because he's the #1 authority about its total definition and uniqueness as introduced with the modern literature. That he knows himself and is also supported by the extraterrestrials that visit him in Switzerland. So I think there's not much on this wall we can talk about more.
Well, you could go into each one in detail, like let's go to the very top one.
This one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is kind of an interesting, it's just a general overall feel for the Earth. You can see that this is a worldwide map, and I got this actually on the back of a calendar, but it's a very good map in the sense that it shows the population densities. There's a few things here. It shows you the relationships of men and women and age or whatever, but you can see that, and this was about year 2000, I think, so the black areas would be the heavy concentration densities of population. As you well know, there's of course the Indus Valley in India, China, and Japan. By the way, Japan has the same, very close to the same area as our own Arizona does. They have a population of about 120 to 127 million, and so Arizona has a population, I think, about 6.8 million. So I don't know about you, I don't particularly want to live in high density, but people live in cities and whatever. And of course they don't show up this way, but the cities would show up as very heavily dense black circles or something like that. So it's just a visual impact that shows you the overpopulation of the world and where it's located in high density. And some of the, another, I don't know if we should get to this map. It's a little old. You can see it's the actual population of our planet as given. These numbers right here show the line rising to, at that point it was 7.7 billion people, whereas our own ability to measure it was way down here. This is what I was meaning, the difference between the actual population and what the extraterrestrials. You have to envision that they would have an ability to measure each singular vibration of each individual. You will come to learn that every human being in the universe is singular and unique, and I'm estimating the only way to do this would be a certain vibration level, certain definite defining part that makes an individual an individual. And like a radio, you can adjust and you can measure it. You can envision a screen, or you could just, almost like a computer, you could punch a button, and it would be able to enumerize or number the total amount of human vibrational forms, or the total amount of animal life. They can do that too. So that's how they get such an exact number, or the way I estimate it. Billy hasn't explained much, but they're very detailed. When they tell him the max population, they say it's so many people by 12 midnight on December 31st, and you have to assume Central European time. Let's see, this small diagram off here to the right represents what happens after here comes our population, here's the transition period, and then there are various strategies for how you start losing. it starts out maybe this way. But what I missed a little bit, working with the local numbers in the transition period, is that it's obvious that the people that were born in like 132 million in 2008, they would be, I hate to say, available for deaths. So you're going to have more people in the future dying off the planet because more people were born back here. So there'll be a ways in the future to adjust. And in order to find out what is that final thing, is it 529 million or is it 1.6 billion? Well, we have much time to think about it, and our own scientists write in various, and they've written all the way down to 520 or 500 million is a proper population for the Earth. Some say more, some say less, 2 billion. Well, anything is better than what we have, and we aren't going to get there unless we try, and we can't just snap our fingers and get there, or snap our fingers and get going in the right direction. It takes an effort. But remember, our planet is only finite, and we have to take care of it. And you will learn in the book that we addressed over there, the Talmud of Emmanuel, that reincarnation is a reality of our universe. And even though many organizations will say, in good attitude and effort, we have to take care of the planet for our children and our grandchildren. And I say, keep going. Okay, our grandchildren, keep going. Great-grandchildren. I say, and yourself, you will be coming back to this planet as a new personality to carry on your creation. Here we come with that term. That's another thing you learn about that word. That's your future, and this goes on. So we have to take care of the planet. You are not going to escape this problem by dying. Or you better hope that something gets taken care of. We don't want to rely on war. Pita, one of the extraterrestrials, talked to Billy. Billy asked him, how many people died in World War I and World War II? Pita says about 116 million. Okay, World War I was about three years in duration. World War II was 5 years in duration. So that's a lot of people dying. But compare it just to what we get born in 1 year, 108 million. 2 wars. So war has never been a great population controller. You don't want it to be. It's a lot of suffering. And there are talks of future wars, nuclear wars. But why don't we adapt a strategy to take the stress off the planet? The more people you get into confine it, the higher the density goes, the more unfriendly and cold they become, the more like they're out to have conflicts. So you have to back off and take the biological pressure off your planet. Anything else? Oh, just a quick question. If you focus on this one, this is kind of just a quick graph of showing in the time of Emmanuel. We just talked about him over there. Call it 0, or just after 32 CE. There were only 100 million people on the planet. Now already by, let's say, 1950, we had about, about 2 billion. So that's a pretty long time, but already since 1950, we've gone from 2 billion to 8.6. And already, as you can see what I said, if you multiply 108 million, if, like Pita said we just got in 2016, times 10, that's almost 1.1 billion. So we're putting on 1 billion, if we keep going, we're putting on 1 billion people per decade. Pita also writes about another race on another planet called Akart, who was experienced very similar overpopulation problems. Back in 75, when Billy went on his great journey with Pita, they addressed the issue, and the Akartians have approximately planet-sized Earth. And at that time, in 75, it had about 23 billion. Now, we don't know the water to land ratio over there. So already Billy asked the question in 2006. Pita had come to visit, as normal, and he says, well, there was a tragedy on Akart. Their oxygen and atmospheric envelope instantaneously collapsed. And the Pleiaren could only say of the 34 billion that were on the planet at that time, the instantaneous failure, they were only able to save 1/16 million to another planet. Pitot didn't define the exact, other than the atmospheric collection, but our own professors, Sarkozy and Petrovsky of Leicester College, have on medical news, have an abstract saying that there's a greater fear of a rising of the ocean temperatures that will kill off the phytoplankton. Phytoplankton live in the upper layers, and they produce 70% of the oxygen in our atmosphere. And there will be a great destruction if that were to happen. And it's very similar to the parallel of what happened to Eckhart. So even though Pitot did not mention phytoplankton, you could just see, and there's many things we're discovering in our own science that corroborates many of the positions in Billy regarding overpopulation, extraterrestrial life, and history of the universe. There's just many things, and we really would be wise to listen to this wonderful man. He cares an infinite love of human beings, and he's been here in great service. He has very much connection to our histories and his former personalities, and he's always in teaching mode, and he writes, and he anchors his statements in his knowledge and in physical reality, and he tells the consequences if you don't live in a healthy and take care of your planet. So let's see. Again, there's many more, the visual element of this particular presentation. There's more in the photographs. They have sound recordings. There's metal samples. There's motion picture analysis. All of this has gone through great inspection through the inspection team of Wendell Stevens, Britt Elders, Lee Elders, and Tom Wells, especially with Wendell Stevens, the retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force, who is known as having the greatest UFO collection library that has been assembled on Earth. And so he knows what he's talking about, and he says this case is completely different than anything he's ever investigated. And I've always summed it up, it's the difference is the amount of information, the variety of information, and the ongoingness of the information. Billy's official contacts started in 1975, January 28th, with the first. And now, I think he's had like just a few months ago, the 688th contact. He has 14 books, mostly in German, that back up his conversations with these people, plus all the photographs, sound recordings, metal samples. Metal samples was looked at by a specialist who knew how it had to be made. He says, we cannot make this metal, it has to be cold fused. We melt our metals and alloys and whatever, but he says, what I'm looking at in my microscope cannot be done on our planet. And so you can believe that the metals of their ships are very, it goes through a 7 cold fusion step process. So it would behoove us to listen to these people. If you fear, do not be fearful. If they wanted to harm us, they would have done it a long time ago. They are very aware of our history. We do kind of descend a little bit from common ancestors. It's just that they're more advanced to us, and it is not wise that they solve our problems. They want to help us. There are many ways that they impulse, certain scientists impulses for learning, but it is not wise for them to solve our problems. Just like if you have your own children, it's not wise to do their homework. They go off to school, you're not there to take their test for them. They have to learn it. If they're struggling, they've got to struggle. You help them, but you cannot do their job for them. And unfortunately, not these individuals, but some of their not so pleasant, but really not violent ancestors came to our planet, and we're back to the problem with the existence of religion on our planet, because these people whose terms of this highest advance of their ones is called an Ishwish, which our early people translated into God, and some of these very advanced ETs announced that they were equal to the creation that created our universe. And that's where we got the image of Creator God that exists in our religions. But God, as you will find out, and I really recommend, you can go to the theyfly.com and visit the site and read a flyer that I gave there and some information. It takes 4 minutes to read, and you can find out if you really would be interested in this book to learn more. And that term, it's just going to be wonderful when everybody gets, especially as I hear the young generation leaving the churches in droves or just turning to anything. They just need some more. Everybody needs something, and I recommend it. It's a big cost for the book, $65, but if you go to the flyer, the quotations and additional quotations on the various subject matters, you will learn quickly that, hey, I'm interested in this book, I'm not interested in this book, you know. But I think it's worthwhile for someone to get, and I hope that, like Joan Rivers says, that after you read it, talk amongst yourselves, as she would say. And that's really where the communication comes in.